Okay. Intuitively, I'm going to try and speak for 5 minutes, see if that works. I may do more. So, what I was thinking is there is this whole series of topics. You're over here. This whole series of topics in Mario Galaxy that have to do with magic, perhaps, that I want to try and explore. The first is the hat, pulling a rabbit out of a hat. Now, this doesn't really have to do with Mario Galaxy. I think more likely I'm trying to talk about something pertaining to the Mario franchise as a whole. To begin with, maybe it's something pertaining to Nintendo franchise as a whole. Maybe there's something that extends to video games as a whole. I'm not really sure, but in the Mario franchise, we have a series of things happening. In Mario Odyssey, you wear a cap that can help you transform into anything, right? And then in Mario Galaxy, the Luma that lets you travel through the galaxy and fly and do stuff like that hides in your cap. At least it is shown to be hiding in your cap whenever you descend from a travel. The Luma kind of goes boop and plops back into your hat. So there's this feeling that there's something in your hat, in your cap, that lets you fly, that lets you perform impossible tricks, magical kind of tricks. So, given that, I think it's there's a whole bunch of areas we could go with this, of course, but one possibility is the rabbit thing. The Lumas are shown to be rabbits at first, right? So, okay, I was thinking how to approach this. In Mario Galaxy, I'm not familiar with... in Mario Odyssey, I think the final mid-level bosses are all bunnies. Am I correct in that? Like, I don't know what the story is, but Bowser has befriended a bunch of bunnies or something. I know you fight bunnies in Mario Odyssey. So, the idea of a bunny and a hat is thematically connected. In Mario Galaxy as well, the Lumas pretend to be bunnies that hop around the planet, and you try to catch them, and you can't because, you can't quite catch a bunny. It's always running away from you, and then until you finally catch it, right? So the bunny is kind of elusive. It runs away, and you can't quite catch it. I think that pertains to the idea of a magic trick where a rabbit in a magic trick can come out of hat, into a hat, it disappears, now it's here, now it's there. It can kind of hide at will and you can't find it. Kind of like how a rabbit maybe would hide into its den or whatever it's called, into its abode. There is maybe this idea then perhaps of rabbits being something unattainable that eludes your grasp. Given all this, it's intriguing to me then the possible connection with the moon as well, because in Mario Odyssey, of course, you collect moon sections. Again, I don't know exactly canonically what the story is there, but you collect moons. So Mario Odyssey has this whole moon rabbit world. It's a world where there's moon pieces and there's rabbits. And the jade rabbit idea in, I think, East Asian folklore in general, but maybe it's originally a Chinese idea and then it is also kind of spoken about in Japanese folklore. I don't know the whole kind of etymology of it, but I know that there's this idea of the rabbit being something that lives on the moon, an association between the rabbit and the moon, and then perhaps also an association between the moon and ungraspableness because of, partly I guess because of Buddhism. Because the moon is, maybe not just Buddhism, but because the moon is something that can be reflected in a pond. I mean, many things can be reflected in ponds, but this idea that a moon can be reflected in a pond, and therefore you can try and grab that reflection of the moon, but you're not actually grabbing the moon. So there's a feeling that the moon is something you can't quite grab, you can't quite get at, and therefore is sort of like a rabbit in that it's unattainable. You can't quite get at it. I mean, a rabbit as symbolized in these games, so to speak. Okay. Okay, now I'll do 2 minutes. See if I can keep these times. So rabbits and elusiveness. Of course, in Mario Galaxy, the moon, I'm still not sure what role the moon plays canonically in the story. I haven't looked. I should. I don't want to. I want to talk about the game without looking at it, kind of. I don't know why. It's elusive. The game itself is elusive. But in any case, the moon appears obviously as an image, as I've said in previous videos, right? There's images of the moon. Because of this, I wonder, right, if maybe an idea that's being expressed here also is that we've got the moon and we've got the Lumas who can become rabbits. Maybe they only become rabbits occasionally, but they are capable of shape-shifting into rabbits. And then they can also enter into Mario's hat, the way a rabbit would in a magic trick, so to speak. This whole thing then, let's not get too derailed. It feels to me sometimes almost as if Rosalina and maybe Peach by extension are moon figures, because they are like goddesses that are surrounded. Well, Rosalina is like this goddess who's surrounded by the Lumas, like the guardian of the Lumas or something. The Lumas are tiny little, clearly star-like beings. They're kind of shaped like a star. They sort of evoke the star creatures from Mario 64. I think there is some connection I've read in the past, and I can't remember. But in any case, we got these big round beings. Rosalina, right? She's enveloped in this big round sphere. And she's surrounded by these little children, so to speak, who are the stars. Okay. Okay, now these should be the last 2 minutes. So it feels maybe that's also, obviously that breaks my own interpretation, because you could say the rabbits are the moon. They're part of the moon. They're an image that's reflected on the moon. Or maybe you could say the rabbits, understood here as the stars, are what surrounds the moon. The moon is surrounded by stars, perhaps creating a slight hierarchy. The moon is bigger from our perspective and the stars are smaller, creating this feeling maybe that the moon is the big boss and the stars are like the followers. You got Princess Peach, Rosalina as the big bosses, sort of goddesses, the moon, and then the stars as the children, followers, hierarchically below them in some way. And these creatures help Mario enter into Mario's hat and let him fly. I'm intrigued quickly about this way in which the circus tent plays a role here, because this whole Luma residency is kind of shaped like a circus, which is a place also of illusion, and because of this, Mario seems to have some sort of an association with the world of the circus tent, the performer, the magician in the All-Stars game for the SNES. I'll show an image of it, right? We get this feeling that Mario himself has something to do with, light that transforms. Now you see something, now you don't. So light as a transforming agent, or as an agent of illusion, image, show, spectacle. You see something thanks to light, but you don't quite see exactly what it is there's something slightly deceptive about it, I guess I want to say. Okay, whatever.